There is no indictment Mr. Comey is facing. That is what former FBI Director James Comey's lawyer, Michael Dreeben, said in court today, adding the new indictment wasn't a new indictment. That came after the dramatic, stunning revelation in court today that the two-count indictment returned against James Comey was never seen by the full grand jury. It was seen only by the foreperson of the jury who signed it, while a deputy foreperson was in the room and no other grand jurors were present or saw that document. The grand jury was originally presented with 3 counts by Donald Trump's chosen prosecutor for the case, Lindsay Halligan, who had never spent a minute of her life as a prosecutor before stepping into that grand jury room. After the grand jury rejected at least one of the counts, Halligan then presented a new indictment for the foreperson to sign. This was revealed in a hearing today, which included the presiding judge asking if a memo written declining to prosecute James Comey, called a declination memo, existed. And the federal prosecutor appearing before the judge today said that Donald Trump's Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche told him not to answer that question. Everything that happened in that courtroom today is something we have never seen before. Back with us is former federal prosecutor, Senator Sheldon Whitehouse. Senator, in your experience, what can you compare this to?
I think this is a one-off. This is really quite extraordinary. This purported U.S. Attorney Halligan has 2 threads running against her in the federal courthouse in the Eastern District of Virginia. The first thread was the magistrate judge in that court just 2 days ago looking at her conduct in front of the grand jury and said that she blew it on the law, she blew it on the facts, and she blew it on the procedure. On the law, the magistrate judge said that she had given the grand jury, and I'm quoting here, a fundamental and highly prejudicial misstatement of the law. And then he went on to say that it looked like she had told the grand jury that they could rely on facts not in evidence before them, but facts that she'd asserted she might later be able to produce at trial. And then the third, of course, was whether the document that the grand jury actually approved and the document that she presented to the court were the same document, or whether there had been a switch. So all 3 of those having gone wrong, the magistrate judge said to Comey's lawyers, you have got access to grand jury documents. It's grand jury secrecy. I'm going to pull that back. You've got discovery. So those preliminary findings, and then the ability of Comey's lawyers to get into this mess and dig into it, was already devastating. And then came the exchange with the federal judge about this last episode of the switcherooed indictment papers, and that just made it even worse, including Ms. Halligan having to stand up in court and admit that there were 2 separate documents. So it's going to be a field day for the lawyers on the defense side, and the prosecutors have to feel really on their heels in this case. And frankly, it looks like Ms. Halligan could be in very serious trouble.
So how serious? I mean, you know, there's at least 4 lawyers that I can think of that associated with Donald Trump and represented him in certain kinds of ways who got disbarred for doing that. Is that one of the options here when you basically present a document that isn't the document?
Undoubtedly. And particularly once they've had a chance to actually go through the entire proceedings, determine exactly what took place, and perhaps even begin to dig into department files, get their hands on that declination memo, and put the whole case together for the judge. It appears that brick by brick, this story is already being put together, and the story that's being put together is of a false, malicious, and vindictive prosecution that broke multiple rules of procedure in order to achieve a wicked end for the political pleasure of Donald Trump. That is a devastating thing for a lawyer to have to answer for.
Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.